Now, on Saturday when I woke up to the news that the nurse at the pivot point of the royal prank call had chosen to end her life, I was floored. You know, it was a really awful thing to happen. But being a comedian, unfortunately, my first thought was, oh no, this is going to be a bad week for comedy. Not for making jokes about this, because I'm sure given enough time, dare I say, a few paragraphs time, that will happen. But this will be bad for comedy in the sense that in the sense of the art of examining the human condition through the manufacture of nonsense and comparing everyday life to genitalia, the craft that some of us foolishly try to make a living out of. Now, because as a comedian, when you create a joke, you never truly intend to hurt anyone. Make fun of people, sure. Ridicule them, why not? Speak truth to power and expose hypocrisy, you know, just like the Chaser do with politicians and sick kids. Fine. But this tragedy is unforeseen. It's unfair to burden the pranksters with this horrible incident. Now, I do a TV show called Can of Worms. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's understandable if you haven't. It's on a television network in Australia called Channel 10. It's like between Gem and SBS One. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you've heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, anyway, Can of Worms is kind of like Q&A for bogans. On that show, I have two roles. I play the hapless sidekick reading witty statistics off a computer screen with all the comedic value of an autistic Dickie Knee. It was different. Yeah, it was different. My other role on the show is to go out in public and do pranks on everyday people. Now, it's the job of my producer, Lewis Hobber, and I to come up with basically any idea that will sufficiently annoy the fuck out of the public. It's a time-intensive and risky process. For instance, an episode where we were examining if celebrities are entitled to their privacy, we came up with this idea to turn everyday people into celebrities by attacking them with a team of paparazzi. Sure, seems like a pretty good idea on paper, until you accidentally pap a guy who is spending his lunch break cheating on his wife. Or one prank where we were looking at whether it's okay to pervert people. I dressed up as a council ranger and gave out fines for people on the beach who were perving. Now, there are two things wrong with this. One, it's very much like a Chaser sketch, but chances are they just probably ripped it off YouTube anyway, so it's not a big deal. And two, that's two.
I've also got a microphone, Dan.
And two, there was a guy sitting on his own in Bondi Pavilion steps, just texting on his phone, enjoying the solace of an empty beach, until, that is, I came up and gave him a fine. I did the script. It was really funny because he was defensive and confused and fuming internally. Every fibre of his body said, "Get the fuck away from me." It was comedy gold until I went back to him to get his signature on the release form. He didn't want to have to sign. He didn't want to have our hilarious interaction broadcast on TV either, because at that point he was too busy organising his mother's funeral in Ireland. I know what you're thinking. What a fucking selfish asshole. Doesn't he understand? We have a TV show to make! The thing is, you can never know when dealing with people in a prank just what point things are going to turn bad. Now, before the tragic death of this nurse, the only tragedy that these radio DJs weren't even famous enough to have their own names in the news reports, because it was their second day in the job. They were just simply referred to as radio DJs. They didn't even have funny nicknames, you know. But if you read Twitter commentary, they certainly do now. It's just a shame that this is going to be the career-ending moment for Dickhead and the Nurse Killer in the morning. That's right. I expected that reaction. Because comedy is highly contextual, and in many ways the way you frame a joke can make or break the joke. It's sort of like emotional maths. For instance, not soon after the hoax, Prince Charles arrived at the hospital and he made a witty quip. He said, "Oh, how do you know I'm not a radio station?" To which the nurse replied, "Well, that's easy, Your Highness. There isn't a constant stream of bile and icy cold coke secreting from your body, and besides, you haven't tried to kill anyone since 1997. Now, if Prince Charles...
Too soon,
1997.
Too soon.
The date is in that joke. Context. Now, Prince Charles said that quip before the death of the nurse, so that was okay. But had he been witty after death, maybe not so good. But then again, if that joke was said by, I don't know, Prince Philip after the death, it would just be put down to dementia. So now everyone is looking for people to blame. The DJs, the radio station management, the journalists. Now, I doubt anyone will blame the hierarchical nature of British society, putting pressure on its citizens to show the utmost reverence to an archaic system of government where sovereignty is bestowed upon a select group of inbred Germans. Great Britain, where a genuine OH&S issue is literally dying of shame. It's actually hard to believe that there's been a Today FM fuck-up that actually didn't involve Carl Sandilands. It seems that the public and the media are desperately willing his involvement in this tragedy anyway. Today FM issued a statement on their Facebook page, and here are some of the replies to that statement. Tim Marshall writes,
"They'll probably get someone like Vile Kyle to put out a statement defending the station. That bloke will get involved somehow."
On Twitter, Madam Dixon twatted,
Hashtag Today FM. Now can we please get rid of Carl Sandilands? As a radio station, you're failing hard.
3AW's John Michael Housen said,
If Australia was sincere about changing its on-air antics, it would have sacked its biggest star, Carl Sandilands.
Sorry, that was going to be John Howard.
Rory Bremner, okay.
Michael Fitzgerald said,
"Hope you're," then that's spelled Y-O-U-R, "proud of yourselves. Let's, no apostrophe, see something smart spew from Kyle's, no apostrophe, dribbling mouth now."
And finally, James Willis informs us,
"I used to live in Brisbane and am familiar with Kyle Sandilands. Might have known he'd have had some involvement."
And just what was Carl Sandilands' involvement in all of this? Well, he went on holiday. For those that truly hate Carl Sandilands, this is probably the worst thing to happen. When Carl Sandilands is on the radio, people feel like committing suicide, but they very rarely do. Now, has anyone on this panel been a part of a team that's done a stunt that's gone horribly wrong? Anyone? Has anyone been on this? Anyone been on it?
I did offer cracked pepper once to someone who was allergic to cracked pepper, and I've had to live with that every day of my life.
Well, Chris, seriously, you've done a few sketches in your life, a few pranks in your life. Have you had any hairy moments doing pranks out in public?
Look, this is a genuinely awful story, and kind of beyond comedy in a way. I mean, the one that me and the other Chaser guys have been sort of discussing in the last couple of days is APEC, and we were just going, APEC's generally regarded by most people in the community as a sort of a triumph of larrikinism or irreverence and that kind of thing. But if the junior officer, if the poor cop on the street who'd waved our motorcade through had taken the same course of action as this nurse had done through public humiliation, that would be an unbearable thing to live with, and I imagine we would have shut down the show. And so I have huge sympathy with these presenters and what they're going through. No one expects stuff like that to happen, and we've kind of been lucky, I guess, that these guys have been very unlucky that something so unforeseen and tragic's happened.
Will, when you were doing radio on Triple J, what were the different when you moved to Triple M?
Yeah.
And I know you live and work in the States now, so feel free to say whatever you like.
I will.
What kind of different pressures did you have working at a commercial radio station versus Triple J?
Well, look, here's the thing. Let's not just completely defend Triple J. I got in a lot of trouble at Triple J when Richard Alston was the communications minister, and Richard Alston was going after the ABC for being biased against the government at the time. So there was a news report on Triple J Breakfast, which is the reason that people aren't allowed to comment off the back of news reports on Triple J Breakfast anymore. This is literally the moment where that ended forever, because I said this. Now, the news report said, Richard Olsen said today that the ABC is biased against the government. And I said, off the back of poor old Karen Barlow, I said, oh, come on. He just reckons that because he's a right-wing pigroot. Now, clearly, that was a joke at the expense of the ABC, that we were left-wing, right? But he didn't take it like that. That was on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald. It was on the front page of the Herald Sun in Melbourne. My mum rang me up. She was like, when did people start caring what you think? I had to make a public apology. This is true. I had to tell people, I said, look, Richard Alston did not root pigs. The pigs said no. Even pigs have standards.
Well, joining us on the line now is someone who is certainly no stranger to the prank call. Hello, Guido Hatzis. Are you there, Guido?
Mate, it's me. Well, I can't believe
Now,
mate.
yeah, go ahead, Guido. What do you think about all of this?
Well, mate, I haven't heard the talk because, you know, I'm like Elmer Fish, mate. I didn't listen to a friend's phone call that I have on me.
We can't hear you. That's because the phone is on Vodafone. But I heard a rumour that you're going to have all of your arias stripped. Is this right?
Mate, that is bullshit, mate. Mate, they will have to take those arias from my cold dead haircut and head.
Guido Hatzis.
It took me months to individually intimidate every member of the voting panel.
Rational fear.